evil coward thing that I hate myself for the rest of my life.
He tipped his hat, as he always did, and he said, "Kathy, I'm safe. Goodbye, I love you."
And allow somebody to come into the house and kill my parents, then that's where it became a problem.
Joseph Founda faced the court with tears as he answered for a crime that deeply hurt a family. He admitted guilt in the murder of 84-year-old Mykola Iwaniuk, a man known for his kindness and willingness to help others. Iwaniuk's daughter, Kathy, spoke through her grief, sharing memories of her father and the pain of losing him just a day after their last meeting.
That just was so devastating. He tipped his hat, as he always did, and he said, "Kathy, I'm safe. Goodbye, I love you."
According to prosecutors, Founda killed Iwaniuk during a fight at his home on the west side, then took his car, which was later found abandoned in a nearby cemetery.
It didn't silence me to stand here to be doing this so unexpectedly. And I shouldn't be here.
The tragedy left Iwaniuk's family, scattered across the country, heartbroken but united in their pursuit of justice.
What could an 84-year-old man, our father, grandfather, great-grandfather, have done to deserve this heinous act?
When it was his turn to speak, Founda apologized to the family.
The evil coward thing that I hate myself for the rest of my life.
Judge Maureen Sweeney delivered the sentence: life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Iwaniuk's family expressed hope that Founda would use the time to reflect on his actions. While forgiveness might come in the future, they were thankful for the justice that brought some closure to their loss. As of January 2025, Founda remains in Ohio's Noble Correctional Institution. He won't be eligible for parole until January 19th, 2040. The Iwaniuk family continues to mourn, but takes comfort in knowing that justice has been served. In April 2022, tragedy struck Youngstown's south side when 24-year-old Rawsheem Aponte was fatally shot when he was driving with his family. His fiancée, Erika, and their daughter were also injured in the attack, while another person in the vehicle miraculously escaped unharmed. The assailant, identified as 22-year-old Vashwad May, pursued Aponte's car to a dead end on Mohawk Avenue before opening fire. The shooting was described as part of a long-standing violent feud between two Youngstown families. After firing, May fled the scene, leaving devastation in his wake.
My kids was traumatized, are traumatized, still traumatized. I will never be the same. My kids will never be the same.
Months later, in November 2023, U.S. Marshals apprehended May in Minnesota after an extensive manhunt. He was extradited to Ohio to face charges of aggravated murder, attempted murder, felonious assault, and weapons violations. During the trial, prosecutors presented critical evidence, including surveillance footage that captured the attack. Additionally, they introduced a rap video in which May was seen with a rifle similar to the one used in the shooting. Erika testified, identifying May as the shooter based on his appearance. The trial concluded in September 2024, with the jury finding May guilty on all counts.
This is as bad as it gets. This is somebody who decided they're going to take somebody out.
Mahoning County Common Pleas Court Judge R. Scott Critchbaum described the crime as horrific and unforgivable.
To my family and friends, keep your head up, your chest out. The fight has only begun.
Throughout the proceedings, May maintained his innocence, addressing his family and supporters with messages of resilience. However, the court deemed the evidence, including the surveillance video, as overwhelming. Aponte's family spoke of the profound and lasting trauma caused by the crime, emphasizing its permanent impact on their lives. In September 2024, Mahoning County Common Pleas Court Judge R. Scott Critchbaum sentenced May to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for the aggravated murder charge. Additional sentences for attempted murder and weapons charges extended his prison term by up to 38.5 years. Jesse Leroy Matthew Jr. became the focus of a series of criminal investigations that spanned nearly a decade, involving incidents in Virginia that deeply impacted local communities. His legal journey began in 2005. In 2005, an incident in Fairfax, Virginia, involving a woman led to an extensive investigation, but authorities were initially unable to identify a suspect. The case remained unsolved for several years, with investigators continuing their efforts to find new leads. Several years later, in 2009, a Virginia Tech student, Morgan Harrington, went missing after attending a concert at the John Paul Jones Arena in Charlottesville. Her disappearance triggered a large-scale search, and after several months, her remains were found in a rural area. Despite significant efforts, the case lacked sufficient evidence to identify the person responsible. In 2014, another case brought renewed attention to these investigations. Hannah Graham, a University of Virginia student, was reported missing after being seen in Charlottesville's downtown mall area. Surveillance footage captured her walking with an individual later identified as Jesse Matthew Jr. This connection reignited interest in the earlier cases, leading authorities to focus their investigation on Matthew. Shortly after Graham's disappearance, Matthew was located and taken into custody in Texas. Forensic evidence linked him to both the Fairfax incident from 2005 and the disappearance of Morgan Harrington in 2009. With these findings, he faced additional charges related to both cases. Matthew was charged with abduction with intent to defile, first-degree murder, and capital murder in connection to the investigations. In 2014, Matthew entered a plea of not guilty to charges related to the 2005 Fairfax case.
Is Mr. Matthew prepared to enter a plea to the charges at this time?
Not guilty.
Was that, sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Not guilty.
All right. My understanding is Mr. Campbell is not going to be here today.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Mr. Matthew, I'm going to, last time I advised you of the charges against you, I'm going to read them now to you, and I'm going to ask you to give me a plea as to each charge. The grand juries of the Commonwealth of Virginia, in for the body of the County of Fairfax, and attending this court at its September term 2014, charge that on or about the 24th day of September 2005, in the city of Fairfax, you, Jesse Leroy Matthew Jr., did feloniously, willfully, deliberately, intentionally, and with premeditation attempt to kill R.G. in the commission of or subsequent to an abduction with the intent to defile. How do you plead to that charge?
Not guilty.
The grand...
Excuse me, Your Honor. We're willing to waive reading of the additional indictments and enter it as not guilty plea. That's agreeable to the court.
Acceptable to the Commonwealth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll waive the reading and take, we are not guilty plea to count 2 as well. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And count 3. And count 3.
A third.
And count 3 is the same.
However, after further legal proceedings and mounting evidence, he was later found guilty and received multiple life sentences. The legal process continued, and in 2016, he accepted a plea deal, admitting responsibility in both the Harrington and Graham cases. In exchange, he received consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, bringing closure to the long-running investigations.
So I'm not fist bumping and happy that he has a challenging diagnosis. He received 7 life sentences for his crimes. And if that life is to be shorter than we expected, I am fine also with that.
Following his sentencing, Matthew was transferred to Red Onion State Prison and later moved to Sussex Thorne State Prison to receive medical treatment. Reports indicated that he had been diagnosed with a serious illness, and he continues to receive care while serving his sentence. A woman accused of killing her grandparents in Fort Lauderdale, Claude and Major Melvin, aged 87 and 89, were found shot to death in March 2024. The suspect, Jalissa Hill, faced 2 charges of first-degree murder. Police claim Hill, who was living with her grandparents at the time, worked with her ex-boyfriend, Maurice News, to plan the murders. Investigators say Hill left their home on the night of the killings, telling officers she was visiting her boyfriend. However, her story reportedly changed multiple times during questioning.
At the end of the day, she's still my niece. But if she did something like that and allowed somebody to come into the house and kill my parents, then that's where it became a problem.
Hill's uncle, Dennis Parker, expressed heartbreak, saying the victims trusted Hill.
When Jalissa and him was together, My mom treated him like they treated anybody else. They trusted him.
Authorities also accuse Hill of trying to benefit financially from the crime. She allegedly filed an insurance claim for her grandparents' missing car and asked if a payout would still apply if they were dead.
My mom stopped you from driving her car, okay? For some reason, I don't know what the reason is, okay? So this happens now.
Police say she later paid her ex-boyfriend $1,000 after the murders. Detectives credit their investigation, including a failed polygraph test that pointed to Hill's dishonesty, for uncovering key evidence. The family has thanked police for their dedication, hoping justice will bring them peace. Parker described his parents as angels who lost their life tragically. He demanded for justice.
You think that you can get away with something like that? But at the end of the day, my parents was angels. One was 87 and one was 89. And do you really think that God gonna allow you to kill an angel and just get away with it? It's not gonna happen.
Jalissa Hill, arrested on September 12, 2024, and her ex-boyfriend, Maurice Newson, remain in custody as the judge refused to grant bond to both of them. Both face charges of first-degree murder. No trial dates have been announced, and the Melvin family continues to seek justice for their loved ones. Freddie Nelson was a hard-working man, doing what he could to support his family by collecting and selling unwanted wooden pallets from Lowe's. It was a simple arrangement, one he thought would help make ends meet. But a conflict with Cornerstone Security Group, the company overseeing the store's safety, turned his routine into a nightmare. The security firm banned Freddie from the parking lot, despite his agreement with the store. On May 29, 2021, everything came to a head. Logan Gimble, a security guard for Cornerstone, confronted Freddie in the Lowe's parking lot in North Portland. What began as a tense encounter quickly spiraled out of control. What started as a confrontation quickly escalated when Gimble used pepper spray during the interaction. The situation tragically ended in an incident that took Freddie's life when Gimble fired shots. Gimble later claimed self-defense, but his account was disputed during the investigation. The Nelson family's world shattered that day. Carly, who had been at Freddie's side, found herself mourning not just her husband, but the life they had built together.
He took my best friend and partner of over 30 years. He took the father of our 3 children and our grandson's grandpa or papa.
The loss was overwhelming emotionally, financially, and physically. She described the void Freddie's death left behind as something she could never escape.
This tragic loss of my husband has devastated me in every way, financially, mentally, physically, and emotionally. I have been forever changed, and I don't know that I will ever be the same again.
Carly bravely spoke of her pain, sharing how the tragedy had forever changed her.
I pray that someday I can have a forgiving heart so that I can move on with my life. As of now, I cannot see how I can ever learn to live with this pain. Not 1 hour has passed without thoughts of my husband, and many tears have been shed.
Gimble, in turn, offered an apology, his words aiming for closure that felt distant.
I just want to say to the Nelson family, I'm sorry for the loss that I caused, and I hope that with this they can find some closure.
Justice for Freddie came slowly. Nearly 2 years later, in December 2024, the case reached the courtroom. A jury heard the evidence, including Gimble's self-defense claims, and dismissed them entirely. They found him guilty of second-degree murder. Then, on January 2nd, 2025, the judge delivered the sentence: life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The story, however, isn't over. Gimble's defense team has signaled their intent to appeal, seeking a different outcome. Meanwhile, the Nelson family was granted a 90-day window to pursue restitution. A civil lawsuit against Cornerstone Security Group, the company that employed Gimble, also remains unresolved. As the legal battles continue, the Nelson family presses forward, determined to ensure Freddie's death will not be in vain. Treniqua Floyd, a Youngstown woman, expressed remorse during her sentencing for the tragic death of Jamar Jones, a boy she had been taking care of. The infant suffered fatal head injuries while under Floyd's care. Despite her apology, the boy's parents believe the punishment handed down was not severe enough. Prosecutors detailed Floyd's inconsistent accounts of the incident.
Obviously, those stories are all inconsistent with each other. She lied regarding what happened.
The boy's parents were left with unanswered questions. Jamar's mother, Jasmine Nickerson, still can't process why this happened to her son.
My son will be 4 this year, and I still don't even know exactly what happened.
Floyd's attorney pointed to her long history of mental health challenges, including schizophrenia and depression, as factors contributing to her actions.
It's schizophrenia. It's depression. She has hallucinations. She hears auditory hallucinations. She hears dead people talking to her.
In court, Floyd read from a handwritten statement saying she never intended to cause any pain.
It never was my intent for the pain and loss that was caused.
Ultimately, Judge Maureen Sweeney sentenced her to 8 years in prison for her role in the boy's death. The case has left the family and community grappling with the profound loss and lingering uncertainty about the events that led to this tragedy. On September 21st, 2020, tragedy struck a home on Perry Street in Struthers, Ohio, when Rowan Sweeney was fatally shot during a targeted home invasion. Investigators revealed that the attackers intended to rob the occupants, seeking funds from a stimulus check received by Alexis Schneider's boyfriend. During the incident, 5 people were shot, including Rowan and his mother, Alexis. Alexis was holding her son when he was fatally wounded, despite her desperate pleas for his life.
Unfortunately, it involved the most innocent of victims, which was a 4-year-old child.
Among the victims, Andre McCoy suffered severe injuries and remains on life support, while the others are recovering.
Present is Kimani Bryant. He will acknowledge receiving a copy of the complaint.
Investigations revealed that Kimani Bryant, one of the suspects, had prior contact with Andre McCoy. Text messages exchanged between the two shortly before the incident showed Bryant asking if McCoy's girlfriend's car was outside the house. McCoy responded and invited Bryant inside, setting the stage for the tragic events that followed. In August 2023, one of the defendants, Andre McCoy, pleaded guilty to a reduced charge of murder. His plea agreement included a recommended sentence of 15 years to life in prison, although his sentencing remains pending. In December 2023, Kimani Bryant, another suspect, pleaded guilty to aggravated murder. As part of a plea deal, additional charges such as attempted murder and aggravated robbery were dismissed. The prosecution and defense jointly recommended a sentence of 20 years to life in prison. Bryant's sentencing will take place after the case against the third defendant concludes. Brandon Crump, the final defendant, faces multiple charges, including aggravated murder and robbery. His trial is scheduled for February 2024. Due to his age at the time of the incident, Crump is not eligible for the death penalty. On September 29, 2022, a confrontation on New York Avenue in Youngstown, Ohio, ended in the tragic death of 21-year-old Jacob Moore. He and 20-year-old Mecky Venable had agreed to meet for a fistfight. Witnesses testified that Moore set aside his firearm to engage in the fight, but Venable stayed in his vehicle and fatally shot Moore before fleeing the scene. The following day, Venable turned himself in to authorities and was charged with murder. During his trial, he claimed he acted in self-defense, stating he feared for his life during the encounter. However, witnesses and evidence presented in court contradicted this assertion, showing that Moore was unarmed at the time of the shooting. On April 19, 2024, after several hours of deliberation, a jury convicted Venable of murder with firearm specifications. He was acquitted of aggravated murder, indicating the jury did not find evidence of premeditation.
As of today, I want to apologize to the victim family, but I'm just as lost as them. I'm a lost soul.
At his sentencing on May 16, 2024, Venable expressed remorse, apologizing to Moore's family and referring to himself as a lost soul. Despite his statements, Judge Maureen Sweeney delivered the maximum sentence of 23 years to life in prison, which included 15 years to life for the murder and an additional 8 years for 2 firearm specifications. 3 years ago, Leonardo Tavares tragically lost his life in a drive-by shooting described as a targeted attack linked to a gang dispute. The incident, which occurred on May 15, 2021, sent shockwaves through the Cape Verdean community and devastated Leonardo's family.
They say time helps heal, but I don't think this is possible. 3 years later, and when that day replays in my head, the hurt still feels the same. The suffocation I felt when I got the news comes back. The stabbing sensation I feel in my heart comes back just as strong.
Known as a devoted and loving individual, Leonardo prioritized his mother and son, always going out of his way to support those he cared about.
If you were part of his life, he would do everything in his power to make sure you were good.
His nonviolence teacher, deeply affected by his loss, recalled how Leonardo was on a path to better his life and inspire others.
He didn't just break one heart, he broke many. There's a saying that all Cape Verdeans are related. So the defendant, he didn't just hurt Leo's family, he hurt his own family as well. The community has lost someone who was on a path for change, someone whose story could have inspired others, but now we're left with pain of what could have been.
Jacqueline Rodriguez, the primary suspect, accepted a plea deal, avoiding a trial and sparing the family from reliving the painful details in court. During the hearing, Leonardo's family shared emotional impact statements, describing the grief that continues to overwhelm them.
Despite my efforts, I couldn't protect him from it. I couldn't protect him from the violence that claimed his life. You didn't just kill him, you caught at everyone that loved him, everyone whose lives he touched. You really shattered our world.
They expressed hope that Rodriguez would reflect on his actions and use his time to bring some positivity from the tragedy.
Maybe, just maybe, something good can come from this tragedy.
Rodriguez apologized and was remorseful.
I'm sorry beyond my words. I wish this never happened. If I could go back and change any time, I would. And I just apologize.
Finally, on September 9th, 2024, Jacqueline Rodriguez was sentenced to life in prison after pleading guilty to first-degree murder and discharging a firearm from a vehicle. Another suspect, 30-year-old Todd Alicia of Pawtucket, is still facing court proceedings. Erika Huff, a beloved Youngstown woman, tragically lost her life after being brutally attacked in her Southside home. The crime, which also left her elderly mother severely injured and the home set ablaze, shocked the community. Erika, who had been battling the challenges of multiple sclerosis, was remembered as a loyal mother, daughter, sister, and friend.
She loved and was loved. She was a loyal and giving mother, daughter, sister, friend, co-worker, and neighbor.
A family friend shared a heartfelt eulogy, highlighting her strength and kindness, making the loss even more profound. The trial revealed critical evidence against Lance Hundley, the man responsible for the attack.
His story was just full of holes. Prosecution was able to just punch it apart.
A juror, speaking anonymously, said Hundley's own testimony sealed his fate, describing it as full of holes and easily dismantled by the prosecution.
Now our family can begin to, mend and put this behind us and begin to heal.
There's no greater evil than the crimes that he committed, and it was up to us to punish him to the fullest extent of the law.
For Erika's family, the process of seeking justice had been long and emotionally exhausting, marked by delays and complications.
It's been a long time. I mean, as you can see, him and attorneys and going around the circle with this process. I mean, it's finally we've have some closure.
After careful deliberation, the jury recommended the death penalty. Judge Maureen Sweeney reviewed the case and upheld their decision, sentencing Hundley to death for Erika's murder. Additionally, he received 22 years for the attempted murder of Erika's mother and for setting the home on fire. While an automatic appeal is expected under Ohio law, the family expressed relief, knowing justice had been served and that they could begin to heal. Emmanuel Boyd was arraigned on a murder charge following the tragic shooting death of his friend, 18-year-old Kane Wiesensee, at Boyd's residence on West Boulevard in Boardman, Ohio. The incident occurred after a 911 call reported that shots had been fired.
Breathe, bro. Breathe, bro.
Officers arriving at the scene found Wiesensee with a gunshot wound. He was rushed to St. Elizabeth's Hospital, but succumbed to his injuries shortly after. Initially, Boyd claimed an unknown assailant in a passing vehicle had fired the fatal shot while he and Wiesensee were walking.
We had to carry him into the house.
5515 West. Is he injured?
Yes.
I need to know, did you see who shot him?
No. It was a black car.
A black car?
It was a black car.
However, Investigations revealed discrepancies in Boyd's story. Witness testimony and evidence indicated that Boyd had been handling a firearm inside the home when it accidentally discharged, striking Wiesensee. Further investigation uncovered that Boyd had stolen the firearm during a burglary just a week prior, and at the time of the incident, he was on probation, which prohibited him from possessing firearms. In February 2020, Boyd was arrested and charged with murder. In May 2020, a Mahoning County grand jury indicted him on multiple charges, including involuntary manslaughter with a firearm specification, burglary, having weapons under disability, tampering with evidence, grand theft of a firearm, receiving stolen property, and falsification. He was held at bond, which was set at $250,000. Boyd later pleaded guilty in July 2020 to involuntary manslaughter and burglary. During the sentencing hearing, he expressed deep remorse for his actions and acknowledged the pain he caused to Wiesensee's family. Boyd was sentenced to a prison term of 14 to 18 years. Melody Morris, a resident of Edgemoor, South Carolina, found herself facing serious legal consequences following an incident involving a pedestrian in Rock Hill. One evening, police responded to reports of an injured pedestrian on Russell Street in Rock Hill. Witnesses reported seeing the victim walking in the road when he was struck by a vehicle driven by Morris. Despite attempts by bystanders to assist, the vehicle continued down the road before the victim was dislodged. Morris left the scene without stopping.
There was one of the witnesses was walking her dog and encountered the victim and waved down another car because he had fallen in the road. Both that driver of the car and the person walking down the street tried to wave down Ms. Morris. She ended up hitting the victim. She dragged him for about 300 feet before he came out from underneath the car. She then left the scene. She had her Jeep fixed after leaving the scene.
The victim sustained significant injuries, requiring immediate medical attention. He was hospitalized with multiple injuries that necessitated a lengthy recovery process, including rehabilitation.
A little bit about the victim's injuries. Both of his femurs were broken. He was on a ventilator for a time and had to be kept heavily sedated. His clavicle was broken. 2 ribs were broken. He had a 10 centimeter long and 3 centimeter deep open to his back and large amounts of road rash. He has now been discharged from the hospital in Charlotte, but he is now in an inpatient rehab facility in Charleston. He is not yet standing on his own. The family explains to me that best case scenario is that he ends up walking again but will be permanently disabled.
His family later shared concerns about his ongoing physical and emotional challenges.
We asked that Ms. Moody do not be granted bond due to the fact that she ran over my brother and have damaged him for life and left the scene like he was an animal on the streets. This has caused a lot of pain to the family as well as Jerome. He constantly, every day, complains about the left leg most of all. He's unable to sleep because he can't get comfortable. Nothing that they seem to give him helps him with pain at all. This has caused a great amount of emotional stress, and Jerome is in a state of now where he is getting deeper and deeper into depression due to the fact that he's never one that likes to be on the inside. He's constantly outside working, helping people. Everyone in Rock Hill knows him. He is a very loving and caring person, and we ask that she does not be granted bond.
A detailed investigation led to Morris's arrest, and she was charged with felony DUI and leaving the scene of an accident with great bodily injury. Authorities collected evidence, including materials from her vehicle, which linked her to the incident. During the initial bond hearing, the judge denied Morris's request for bail, citing the seriousness of the charges. In a later hearing, her defense team requested bond to allow her to spend time with her family.
This is certainly a terrible situation. As you can see, Ms. Morris is very upset about this and feels terrible for Mr. Key. Your Honor, we're simply asking that you set some sort of bond for her. She would very much like to be out for Christmas. I know she very much hopes that Mr. Key will be out of the inpatient treatment he's going through, so he can be with his family for Christmas. Ms. Morris does want me to ask Your Honor for that. Your Honor, I don't think she's generally a danger to the community. In this situation, this is not a fact pattern where we have a car careening out of control, hitting pedestrians or anything like that nature. By all accounts, the car was driving by a reasonable rate of speed. There's no indication of reckless driving or weaving the lane or anything like that. It's simply driving down a roadway and encountering a prone individual in the roadway. Is she a flight risk? Certainly there's inherent concern I'm sure the court has with the leaving the scene of an accident charge like this. However, we'll say that Ms. Morris's family is all here. Her father is here to support her, her daughter, her family is in the York County family. She doesn't own a car. The car is actually her father's. She doesn't have a passport. Your Honor, we'd ask you to consider just giving her a bond and maybe even giving her a house arrest order, allowing her maybe to go to a doctor, an NA or AA meetings, anything like that she may want to go to, and certainly come to court and to see me. Your Honor, again, I think this is just a really bad situation, but Ms. Morris would very much like to just be out on bond for a bit and spend the holidays with her family.
They argued that she posed no flight risk, given her strong community ties and lack of travel documents. They also suggested conditions such as house arrest and regular check-ins to ensure compliance. Morris's daughter also addressed court and shared the true nature of her mother.
My mama is a good person. She's a kind-hearted person. Anybody that knows her knows that if she has it, she'll give it to you. And I know that her, as well as my family, is very sorry about what happened to this man. And we pray for him every day. I love my mama. She's a good mother. She's a great nana.
The prosecution, however, raised concerns about Morris's history, mentioning the seriousness of the allegations and the potential for alcohol-related issues. They argued that releasing her during the holiday season could present risks and stressed the need for accountability, given the nature of the charges.
She was on the call. They enforced that she was even discovered. And my concern is that she might leave the area even if she was on bond. My concern is, a bigger concern I have is that being out there, regardless of placing her under house arrest, that the allegations include not only drinking alcohol, but also abusing crack cocaine. People with that kind of addiction are not going to be bound by a lot of things, because of the addiction. And my concern is, if she is out, that something else could happen, driving on injuries. That's my concern. So I'm going to deny bond today. I would consider it a danger to the community. She would be even on house arrest. So.
Ultimately, the judge denied Morris's bond request, considering the seriousness of the case and concerns for public safety. The case continues to draw attention, serving as a reminder of the importance of responsible driving and accountability in such situations. Aaron Hernandez's journey from a rising football star to a convicted felon is a story that shocked the sports world. Hernandez's football career took off at the University of Florida, where he played as a tight end under coach Urban Meyer. In 2009, he contributed to the team's national championship victory and earned recognition as a first-team All-American. His outstanding performance led to him winning the prestigious John Mackey Award, given to the nation's top tight end. In 2010, Hernandez entered the NFL, signing with the New England Patriots. He quickly became an essential part of the team's offense, helping them reach the Super Bowl. His success on the field led to a long-term contract extension in 2012, reflecting the team's confidence in his abilities and commitment.
Good morning, Mr. Kraft.
Good morning.
Aaron Hernandez signed with the Patriots as a professional football player. I think you said your memory is around 2010 or 2011. Is that right, sir?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That's fine, sir. And do you recall where Aaron had played college football?
Yes.
Where was that, sir?
At Florida.
And at the University of Florida, sir?
Wherever Urban Meyer, I always get them mixed up, yeah.
And do you recall that the University of Florida won the national championship in 2009?
Yes.
Under Coach Meyer?
Yes.
And with Aaron Hernandez on that team?
Yes.
And do you recall that in 2009, Aaron Hernandez was a first-team All-American at Florida?
Yes.
Do you recall that in 2009, Aaron won the John Mackey Award as the best tight end in college football?
Do you want me to answer
You
that?
may answer.
I don't follow all those details. I knew he was very good.
And when Aaron signed with the Patriots, do you recall that he had a productive rookie season, a successful rookie season, sir?
Yes.
And that was followed by another season where your team, the Patriots, went to the Super Bowl. Isn't that right?
Yes.
And Aaron was part of that team.
Yes.
Now, when you and Aaron would see each other, you had a bit of a special greeting, didn't you?
Yes.
And what was that, sir?
Well, he would always hug and kiss me.
And after that Super Bowl season, your organization made an investment in Aaron, didn't it?
Yes.
Specifically, in August of 2012, the New England Patriots signed Aaron to a long-term contract, didn't they?
Yes.
And that contract was to run through the 2018 season. Isn't that right?
Yes.
And the maximum...
I'm not sure. I don't know if there were options involved, so I don't remember the details.
Is your memory exhausted on that subject, sir, as far as the length of that contract?
No, I'm not questioning the length. I think that very often during contracts, we have options to continue or not continue.
Do you recall that the contract itself, however, contemplated when signed that it would run through the 2018 season?
I don't get into the details, so I just knew we signed them.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Mr. Kraft, I'm going to show you a document and just ask you to take a look at a page which has been marked N000015, in particular paragraph 5. And just on the topic of whether a contract signed by the New England Patriots and Aaron contemplated him being a member of the Patriots through the 2018 season, see if that refreshes your memory, sir.
My memory isn't to be refreshed because I don't get into this. I okay it when it's brought to me. But there are details beyond this that I can't say that I'm an expert on the terms and conditions. I know we signed him to a long-term contract.
Thank you, sir. Do you know why the organization signed him to a long-term contract, Mr. Kraft?
He's a very good player.
Now, do you remember Aaron signing this contract in August of 2012?
I don't.
Do you remember that shortly after he signed the contract, Aaron personally gave you a check for $50,000 to the Myra Kraft Giving Back Fund?
Objection sustained.
Now, directing your attention to June 19th, sir, as Mr. McCauley did, 2013. You were at Gillette Stadium, is that right, sir?
Yes.
And you saw all the media assembled there, isn't that right?
Yes.
And the media coverage at that point was nonstop and it was extensive, isn't that right?
Yes.
However, Hernandez's promising career took a dark turn in June 2013 when he was arrested and charged with the murder of Odin Lloyd, a semi-professional football player who was dating his fiance's sister. Authorities allege that Hernandez played a central role in the incident, which took place near his home in North Attleboro, Massachusetts. The arrest and subsequent media coverage led to the Patriots releasing him from the team. While awaiting trial, Hernandez faced additional charges related to a 2012 incident in Boston, where Daniel Deabro and Safiro Furtado were fatally shot in a drive-by shooting after a nightclub altercation. Prosecutors linked him to the crime based on witness accounts and forensic evidence.
An indictment BRCR 2013-0983-A, where you're charged with the crime of murder, the jury returning a verdict of murder in the first degree. And in consideration of the crime for which you now stand committed, you are sentenced by order of the court as follows. You are committed to the MCI Cedar Junction for the term of your natural life without the possibility of parole. On BRCR 2013-0983-B, where you were charged with the crime of unlawful possession of a firearm, after the jury finding you guilty and the court in consideration of the crime for which you now stand convicted, you are punished by imprisonment to MCI Cedar Junction for a term of not less than 2.5 years to not more than 3 years, committed concurrent with the life sentence imposed on count A. On BRCR 2013-0983-C, where you're charged with the crime of unlawful possession of ammunition, after being convicted by the jury, you now stand convicted, and in consideration of the offense for which you've now been convicted, you are sentenced to the House of Correction for a period of 1 year deemed served. Sir, you have the right to have your case reviewed by the Supreme Judicial Court. Pursuant to General Laws Chapter 22E, Section 3, you're required to supply a sample of your DNA to be included with the statewide DNA database.
In April 2015, Hernandez was found guilty of first-degree murder in the Odin Lloyd case and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. 2 years later, in April 2017, Hernandez was tried for the 2012 Boston double homicide. He was acquitted of the charges, offering a brief moment of hope.
For a year, you find the defendant not guilty. With respect to indictment 2014-10417, offense 004, charging armed assault with intent to murder, victim Gerson Lopes, you find the defendant not guilty. With respect to indictment 2014-10417, offense 005, charging armed assault with intent to murder, victim Mercedes Sanchez, you find the defendant not guilty. With respect to indictment 2014-10417, offense 006, charging assault and battery by means of a dangerous weapon, to wit, firearm, victim Aquilino Freire, you find the defendant not guilty. With respect to indictment 2014-10417, offense 007, charging possession of a firearm, not homework, no license, to wit, a .38 caliber revolver, the date of July 16, 2012, you say the defendant is guilty of this offense as charged. And with respect to indictment 2015-10384, offense 001, charging witness intimidation, you find the defendant not guilty. So say you, Madam Foreperson?
Yes.
So say you, all members of the jury?
Yes.
Your Honor, may the verdict slips be filed.
They may. Please be seated.
However, just days after the acquittal, Hernandez was found dead in his prison cell. Following his death, Hernandez's conviction in the Lloyd case was briefly vacated under a Massachusetts legal principle that nullifies convictions if the defendant dies before completing the appeals process. However, in 2019, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court reinstated the conviction, ensuring that his criminal record remained intact. The Dunnachie family tragedy unfolded in Arlington, Texas, when Veronica Dunnachie found herself at the breaking point in a turbulent divorce from her husband, Russ Dunnachie. The growing strain in their relationship led to a devastating confrontation at their home, where Russ and his 20-year-old daughter, Kimberly KJ Dunnachie, were fatally shot. After the incident, Veronica contacted a friend, admitted what had happened, and then drove herself to a mental health facility. Authorities later took her into custody without resistance. In February 2016, Veronica appeared in court and pleaded guilty to capital murder of multiple persons. During the sentencing hearing, the family and loved ones of Russ and KJ delivered emotional victim impact statements, sharing the pain and loss they had endured. They described Russ as a devoted father of 2 boys, husband and friend, a man of honor, integrity, and kindness who always put others before himself. KJ was remembered as a young woman full of dreams, kindness, and promise, whose life was taken far too soon. The loss of both had left an unfillable void, with loved ones mourning the moments they would never get to share again: graduations, weddings, and simple everyday joys.
She took a son, an only cherished son, a son who honored, respected, and loved his parents. She took a little bro and a big brother. She took a loving, protective, devoted, and unselfish father, a father who loved his kids with a passion. She took a loving husband who was committed with all his heart to helping her deal with the painful realities of this life that wound our souls. He was committed. He was a soldier who understood and lived a life of honor, integrity, and dependability. He stood on that wall more times than I think any of us will ever know. It was just the right thing to do. So he stood there on that wall all throughout his life, long before and long after his military career. We have lost a dear friend, a brother who would have done anything for us, a little bro and a big brother who was a bright light even on the darkest days. Whether it be a text or a phone call, his light shone through. His optimism, encouragement, sense of honor, and love of the Lord was a beacon in this mixed up, frustrating, sometimes overwhelming world. He always knew how to make you smile. We've lost an example of what it is to live a life sold out in commitment to those he loved. He was a family man, and he gave that term a good name. He was such an example and encouragement to me of being a parent. He was loyal. He loved his family and friends with a loyalty that our hearts long for. His humility made him a man capable of giving grace and forgiveness to others, something we all desperately need. Veronica took from herself a heart that cared so tenderly for her. He shed many tears in prayer for her healing, for her well-being, for her happiness. He was a kind and good manager who cared greatly about those he worked with. He'd tell me of a person, no names of course, about whom he was concerned and wanting to help or encourage. He was that driver on the road who would actually stop for the person with a broken down car. My sisters and I have lost an uncle for our children, not just any uncle, but the awesome uncle who always knows how to make you smile, surprise you with a little something, or make you laugh uproariously. As for Russ's children, how do we even begin to mark what they have lost? The phone calls seeking Dad's wise counsel are gone forever. The "hey Dad, have you got a minute" is never again a possibility for them. That proud look or twinkle in his eye at them when they've been amazing, those can't ever happen again. He is no longer here to walk his daughters down the aisle or approve of the women his sons want to marry. His arms will never hold their newborn children. He can no longer hug and kiss and tickle his grandchildren until they squeal with glee. He is no longer here to tuck his little ones in at night or carry them on his shoulders to the park. He is not here to help his teenage son cross over into manhood. Nor will he be with the 2 younger boys when the 2 younger boys come to that place in life. Those protective, comforting daddy arms to hold them when they are hurting are gone. If you ask me, we've lost a hero. The murder of Russ and Kimberly Dunnachie has wounded us deeply, striking to the depths of our souls. This past year obviously has been unlike any other and took us all by storm.
The family spoke about the long-term emotional and psychological damage the tragedy had caused.
One of Russ's sons put it very well. He said, as of December 10th, 2014, my entire life changed. My heart was broken and hardship crossed my path. I had lost a father, a mother, a sister, best friend, and 3 amazing little siblings. This crime has hurt our family physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, and spiritually. We will never be the same. How has it impacted us? How has it not? We will see him again one day, we know that. But there is so much anger and grief about the years that have been stolen from us. The contentment of walking through life together, doing life together, has been snatched away. And then there is the senseless absurdity of such an act of violence, the traumatic shock that smacks you in the face from out of nowhere. For many of us, sleep does not come easily anymore. Numerous children have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, waking at night shaking or fighting from horrific dreams. There has been a heaviness of heart. We've been exhausted daily, and it is a battle not to be regularly irritable with our husbands and children, or for the children to be regularly angered with siblings and parents. These kids have lost a father, a mother, an older sister, a best friend, siblings, an uncle, and cousin. These are children we are talking about here. They have struggled in school with grades because they can't sleep and can't concentrate. They have struggled with friends. How do you discuss this in reality with friends when you're a kid? How do you say, my mom murdered my dad and sister, and my aunt murdered my uncle and cousin? To lose a family member is hard enough, but to have it be murdered, and by a family member, what do you do with that? They need their friends, but their friends aren't equipped to handle this, so they can't talk about it with them. And they end up feeling scared, awkward, depressed, misunderstood, alone, and isolated. The adults have wrestled this year to wrap our minds around what has happened while attempting to support each other and help our children navigate completely uncharted waters. My sister stated that this crime lives on in perpetuity, affecting our family's lives for generations to come. She is right. None of us will ever be the same again. Niece, 13, had to leave class in tears during a Civil War documentary because it reminded her too much of what happened to Uncle Russell and Kimberly. Nephew, 12, struggles with anxiety. He has a warrior's heart just as his uncle did. He didn't see this coming and he couldn't help or protect them. Niece, 12, struggled and battled to hold on to her faith. It's not fair. I can't feel God holding me anymore. Why did Veronica take that away? Will it ever come back? You need it to come back. Exactly how do you answer that? Our garden fairy has spent the last year trying to find her smile again. Innocence has been ripped away and her joy has been replaced by a brutal reality. Nephew, 9, still cries at night for missing Uncle Russell. Son, 8, wanting to call his daddy on the phone. Answer that. Niece, 9, how many bullets does it take to kill a person? 1. So like in the head or the heart? Dumbfounded and nauseous, I replied, yes, Peanut. Really, am I having this conversation with my sweet little innocent 9-year-old? Mommy, what if I can't forgive her? Do I have to forgive her? Not a short conversation. Niece, 14, stood at the viewing shaking her head with tears streaming down her face. Now 15 years old, she struggles to swallow this absolute absurdity. She has been so angry. She has laid awake countless nights worrying about her cousins. She is chased after laughter and joy as if they were phantoms. And she feels guilty because she has not yet been able to forgive Veronica. My mother said, not a day goes by that I don't feel the enormous hole in my heart, and I wish so desperately that it could have happened to me instead of him. Being here today was just more than her heart could bear. I know without question this event has gashed the hearts of my sisters and life beyond words. There are family members who have found it almost impossible to trust anyone anymore. Anxiety and fear have become frequent companions. You feel like you're on high alert, getting up multiple times at night to make sure all the doors are locked.
The boys and relatives struggled with grief, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress, with some experiencing sleepless nights and difficulty concentrating in school or work. A particularly heartbreaking moment came when a young family member questioned how they were supposed to forgive Veronica, expressing the deep internal conflict between faith and overwhelming pain. They emphasized that this loss was not just about the past, but about all the future memories stolen from them. While they hoped for justice and closure, they acknowledged acknowledged that nothing could truly heal the wounds left behind by the loss of Russ and KJ.
Court calls cause number 1396031, Styled State of Texas versus Veronica Dunnachie. Is that you, ma'am? And we're here today for sentencing on the agreed plea bargain in this case. What says the state?
State's ready.
What says the defense?
State's ready.
Are you the same Veronica Dunnachie who appeared in this court on February 5th, 2016 and pled guilty to the offense of capital murder of multiple persons? Based on your plea of guilty and the judicial confession in this admonishment document, I'm going to find you guilty of the offense of capital murder of multiple persons and set your sentence in this case and life in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice without possibility of parole. It is the order, judgment, and decree of this court that you be remanded by the Sheriff of Tarrant County to the Director of the Institutional Division to serve your sentence as required by law. You have no right of appeal in this case because I followed the plea bargain. And you will be given credit for the time that you've served, of course, without possibility of parole. That doesn't really matter. And has the defense had an opportunity to review the victim impact statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Or the 3 victim impact statements that I have in the packet?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you have any objection to these?
In court, Veronica confirmed her guilty plea to the charge of capital murder of multiple persons. Based on this plea and a judicial confession, the judge formally found her guilty and sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The ruling ensured that she would remain in the custody of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for the rest of her life. The case gained widespread attention, not only because of the tragic circumstances, but also due to Veronica's previous involvement with advocacy groups. She had been an active participant in open carry protests, sparking debates about domestic conflicts, personal responsibility, and firearm ownership. This connection added another layer of complexity to the public discussion surrounding the case. Big thanks to our viewers for joining the courtroom journey with us. Your interest in the stories of justice is what keeps our channel alive.